It's business. It's business time. Hang tight, we're gonna get into the business right here in a couple minutes. Baby, baby. It's business. It's business time. All right, welcome to week 47 of It's Business Time. We are joined this week by Rory Laitila of salesinsights.io. Rory, thank you so much for joining the podcast
thanks
here.
So much.
Appreciate you. We've known each other a little bit now, and what's really cool is you're one of the many at this point that has come from the Delaware Business First networking events. Great third Tuesday event held right here at Stitch House by Delaware Business First, powered by King Creative, Christopher Bruce. And yeah, just been a really good engine for small business in the area. Before we get rolling here, I do always like to give a real quick shout out to Stitch House Brewery. They are right here on Market Street, always have 12 beers on tap. They're a local small business as well. So if you find yourself in the Market Street area, definitely stop by, pop in and grab yourself some food, some drinks. And with that, we are rolling. Rory, again, thank you for joining. We've been talking a little bit, I'm in the marketing space, you're in the sales and growth space as well. And so for this series, a lot of this series is kind of bent around for those who are getting started in small business, for those who have a goal, a dream, as they go down that journey. I like to think or hope that if they watch the series, they'll learn a lot of stuff, avoid some of the problems the easy way rather than the hard way.
Yep.
So in that vein, I kind of like to start in the beginning. Like, what is it that you were doing before you started salesinsights.io? And kind of what was that moment, that light bulb where you said, you know what, it's time to strike out, start my own company and get rolling?
Yeah. Well, it goes way back, actually.
Okay.
So Sales Insights is really an outgrowth of the consulting now that I've done for 13 years.
Okay.
But it really touches with some of my earliest work. So I started my business in 2013, officially in Wilmington here, focusing on marketing and affiliate marketing and analytics. And that's where we started. We evolved into software development and sales consulting and some marketing consulting. And over the years, it's kind of evolved and again, pivoted again.
Right.
Really more refined, kind of around a core principle. And where we've ended up is helping companies scale revenue. So, I've taken the business from basically a startup through consulting to productizing and now helping other companies scale their revenue, and all the while build our software product and build our acumen. So it's kind of been a trajectory of different pivots, which is very common with a lot of business owners, particularly in the services space.
Yeah.
Even when you start out in a particular type of service, you pivot over time into maybe different customer groups or different ways you're framing the product. So Sales Insights was something that kind of started a couple years ago after, let's say, 10 years of doing a lot of different projects kind of in this vein.
Right.
And we discovered that we're just really well suited to doing this kind of technical sales, data-oriented growth strategy.
Right.
Isn't really commonly done out there in the finance field, and it was kind of a specialty of ours. So I don't want to say that we stumbled into it, because it's kind of been our nature, but at the same time, it was something that we discovered.
Yeah, I can see that. So through layers of consulting and kind of seeing where your value in the market is.
Correct.
And that's interesting too, because you had the consulting background, and then you developed software to kind of meet the needs that you were finding in that space.
I developed software because it's impossible to hire developers at an affordable rate when you're trying to automate things as a boutique agency, and I have an engineering mindset.
Right.
So even though I have a business degree, but I taught myself programming and data, data analysis in order to do the work.
Right.
And that's allowed us to productize things that in a lot of firms are going to just work off Excel spreadsheets or a lot of manual work. We've been able to automate and productize, which has allowed us to do these advanced formulas and systems.
So you were like the principal developer, I guess you would say,
Yeah.
on the software itself.
Yeah, exactly.
What was your engineering degree in, if you don't mind me asking?
Well, I had a business degree in
business.
entrepreneurship
Okay, gotcha.
and just business administration.
Gotcha.
But I really got a second degree when I went and worked for a data center in technical support. And so that kind of taught me all of the back end, the servers, everything to do with the cloud. It really gave me a technical understanding that I carry through to today.
Right.
And that allowed us to really build the software. And then I've always had an interest in building software. So the first thing I love to do when I wake up in the morning is make coffee, sit down, code.
Right. Okay. It's like a peaceful start to the day.
Correct.
It gets the cells firing
Correct.
and things like that.
The muse is going, yeah.
Yeah.
And then in the afternoon, I kind of like to do the analysis and work with the clients. And so from a interest perspective, the coding and the software and building the products is like core.
Right.
From a client and service perspective, the analysis and helping them grow.
Right.
And helping them scale is kind of what's motivating. So it's always been trying to find the intersection of these two things. What do I love to do from a production perspective? What do I love to produce?
Right.
And then where do I love to serve? And Sales Insights is really now, it changes all the time, but it's now like the quintessential integration of those two things. I get to build really cool tech.
Yeah.
And then I get to serve in this way of scaling, which is just a lot of fun.
Yeah. No, I see that, like, as you kind of talk about the day and the division, and I can tell that it took you a while to get there, but I can see the smile kind of creeping up.
Exactly.
And that's one of the things I love about this series is small business owners and people who are growing businesses. I kind of have a joke, and maybe it's not the best one, but it's like, you can either break your back doing something you don't love or break your back doing something you love. Either way, you're going to be breaking your back in some way, shape, or form. But so I am excited to get into kind of what it is that you do for clients. What are your ideal types of spaces where you add value? But I want to hang on the early days just a little bit longer. So the idea of Sales Insights, the software side, can you do a little bit of a deeper dive into like what were you doing with clients that told you I need this tool? Because a few weeks ago I interviewed someone who was building schedules and calendars and things like that, and they went and paid for an app, and as they're having that app being built, they're realizing like maybe this isn't actually what I need, and so you have this unique perspective because you were the one building the tool that you need. Was there something that was happening in your day-to-day where you said, I need this tool and there are no other tools like it, so I have to build it myself?
Yeah, essentially, because we're in an adjacent space to what would be finance or financial planning and advisory, mergers and acquisitions, venture capital. These are all kind of related areas, and everyone has a different tool set.
Right.
The finance people are coming more from a accounting and bookkeeping background, your traditional P&L and balance sheet. Right. And then the growth marketers are oriented around marketing statistics and customer return. There's this whole space around revenue growth, which is tracking your revenue over time in a real-time basis over time quickly. Because when you're trying to scale a business, the revenue is changing month over month for all the different reasons. So let me take the counter situation. If you sell one product to one customer at one price from one marketing channel, okay, really easy. Okay? You can keep that all in your head. But the second you have multiple customers, multiple prices, multiple products, multiple marketing channels, those things are fluctuating all the time, and you need to keep track of them. From the finance side, your CFO isn't going to get into that level of detail about what's changing in the business. And from a marketing side, they're focused on the marketing channels and AdWords and Google Analytics and that kind of thing.
Blowing up the numbers.
Up the numbers from the marketing side. The intersection of what's actually driving the revenue from a price and a product and a positioning perspective, there is not really software that addresses this, except in a few niches. If you have an e-commerce business, if you have a SaaS subscription business, that's supported. And in some cases, some enterprise sales teams, some traditional B2B enterprise sales teams, there's software for that. But for everything else, there isn't really. So when you have a complex business, or you have a non-traditional business that doesn't fit these cookie cutter solutions, there really isn't anything out there other than build it yourself.
Yeah.
Which is what everybody does.
Right.
So if you have a CFO or anyone helping you with your books, anything that's custom about your business, they're going to model it. But we wanted to be able to do that across all of our clients and maintain it.
Right.
Some of the work is so complicated that if you do it all custom every time, that would be the only account you could ever work on.
Right. Yeah.
We want to be able to help multiple companies scale and be able to duplicate the things that are similar across the companies.
Yeah.
So instead of building all of our solutions inside Excel, which are not reusable that easily, we build it in a software platform. And that allows us basically, when we have a new client and we discover a new model that's universal, we can immediately bring it to all the other clients. That's kind of the reason to build our own tech.
And you being one of the developers of this, I can imagine that when you have a new client and you need a tool for them, when you build that, now you have that in your deck.
Correct.
For each similar person.
Exactly.
Or each similar company beyond that. Very, very cool. I was in a startup as well for 6 years, and I do remember like the early days, right, when we had a few simple products. We were all focused in our lanes on the one thing.
Yep.
And then as the SKUs, the different product types started to expand, it was hard to find where's our best margin, because we had a complicated situation too, which is like we had a low margin physical good, which was their entry point to the high margin SSAS, right, or the subscription service. And so we sometimes would lose money on the physical thing in order for them to have the tools they need to access the digital thing.
Yep.
And you're absolutely right. I remember our CEO at the time searching far and wide for tools that would help us kind of look at it broadly. But yeah, there were definitely some periods where I wish we had more analytics. Like we were WooCommerce for a while, and then Shopify afterwards.
And you go on those platforms, and they work really great if you're very tailored to that platform. But the reality is, every business has a unique market position. And we know that because they have a different brand, they sell different products, they sell a different price, they have different business owners.
Right.
And so to really get your company growing, you have to find out what's unique about the business, understand it, instrument that analytically, and then make sure it's growing consistently.
Right.
And it is different for every business unless you're in a franchise. Basically.
The franchise model. Yeah. No, this is actually a great segue into the value add, because it almost feels like to me like, there's like a mild, as I hear you talk, there's this mild soothing that's happening of like when a company doesn't have a CTO or a CFO or an acting CFO, sales insights can kind of like fill some of those gaps without, of course, requiring, a full salary.
Yeah, exactly. I would say in some respects, we work very adjacent with the CFO. So sometimes, depending on the client, I'll say, we'll do everything except your taxes and your books. Right. So CFO, a very sophisticated one that's doing strategy, also will tend to dip into our work. Right. And then when we're on an advanced client, we'll tend to dip into that work a little bit. But we stop at the taxes and we stop at the books and accounting.
Gotcha.
We're focused really just on that revenue piece. What's driving the scaling and the revenue and your margin and your profitability, and then making sure that those factors are increasing every month.
Gotcha. So you're clearly a creative guy. You're clearly someone who has a broad knowledge coming from the consulting world. So I'm sure there are countless businesses you could help, but let's kind of like flip that. And it's like, what for you is like, what is the type of business, what is the type of client that you just, as soon as you talk to them, you're like, man, we can add a ton of value here?
Yeah. Sometimes it's easier to explain by what is not the right client.
Okay. That's fair. Let's flip it back and go the other way.
So product market fit. If you don't have product market fit yet, if you haven't figured out who you're selling to, what you're selling, how you're selling it or what you're going to sell it at.
Gotcha.
So if you're in that startup phase, we work with clients like that. I really enjoy it, but it's really more of just a consulting strategy, helping them get the pieces and giving them insight based on our broader knowledge of the area, so they don't waste time. And then once you're over 50 million, typically those companies have a lot of compliance. They have a lot of industry tools that they're already bringing in. They already have teams that they're embedding or that they're hiring full time. So we like to play in between those spaces. So you have product market fit, you're ready to scale revenue. You know what you're selling, you know how you're selling it, you know who you're selling it to, and now you just want to grow rapidly. And that scaling aspect is a different phase of business. Once you get high enough, you're kind of in the mature phase, and then you need to control costs and you need to kind of stably grow the organization. We want to focus on companies that really want to scale. So that is generally going to be in 5 to 20 million range. But it can be smaller if it's the right, even a $2 million company can be in the scaling mode if they're really tight.
What
team.
are some indicators, just for those out there who are wondering where they're at, wondering when it's time to kind of take that next big step? Or what are some of the indicators that you look for, like to say you guys are ready to scale? And I ask that more so for those at home who are in that, like, maybe they had their first 100K sales year, and in their mind they're worth 5 mil, right? But in like an investor's mind, they're still in the early stages. Is there something that people at home can say, even though I'm not here yet, once I get to here, I'll start to call people like Rory, or I'll start to call, a firm to help me really scale up?
Yeah, emotionally, you'll feel as a business owner, early on, it'll be very confusing. Like, I don't know where my deals are coming from. I don't know where my deal flow, my sales are coming from.
A
lot of referrals. Or nothing's consistent. Some months I'm making, I'm having a lot of deals. Some months I'm not. Or I'm constantly changing my pricing. Or I'm constantly trying new contract terms. So when the experimentation is still really high, and you have an internal feeling of I'm not really quite sure where we sit, that's not really scaling. You should really, you really need to focus in on observing the market and trying to double down on the areas that are working and validate that is where you're going to grow. And so you get in the scaling mode when you start to feel really confident about how you're positioned and it works. And then your next feeling is, all right, everything's working. I just need to figure out where to get more deals now. And then those deals are going to come from different channels, and each channel requires different management and different strategies to scale it out. And so essentially, you have 3, 4, 5 channels that deals are going to come from. You're going to start at the top, you're going to scale that, and then go to the second, and then scale that. And as you go through, that's how you scale out the revenue from the different channels.
I love the outside perspective too, because a lot of times when you're in the company, right, and you're seeing the revenue and you are starting to get consistency, your prices are fixed. When you said that was a pain point, I was like, man, I've been in a lot of situations where we thought the price was the problem. We move the price, we move it again, move it again, and we realized I don't think the price is the problem. I think it's our education, or it's our content marketing, or it's something. There's some barrier. Once they get to the price, they don't care about the price. And we were fussing with it for months, if not years.
Correct. And that's very true in services businesses. Services businesses, getting that product market fit is the hardest part. When you're going into something where it's e-commerce, or there's already companies in the space that are doing a very, very similar thing, and then in those cases, it's really just out-competing them from a marketing and customer acquisition perspective. Those can go into a scaling situation a lot faster. You basically just need to get your system set up, and then we just need to out-compete everybody else in terms of marketing and customer acquisition. It's the services companies, or you're starting a unique software product, or something that doesn't exist. And then you have to figure out how to make it work as a kind of total brand first. There's always things to help with from a positioning perspective and a pricing perspective, but you don't need the analytics piece. So we can help from a consulting perspective, but you don't need the analytics until you have things to analyze, and you don't have things to analyze until you
have bigger SKUs, different margins, all
Correct.
that type of stuff.
Correct.
Do you ever dive into the HR side of things? Or I know you kind of said you stopped on the accounting.
Yeah.
Do you ever dive in? Because obviously it doesn't matter if you have incredible margins if you're losing a lot of money elsewhere in the business. Do you do like an overall, or are you mainly focused on the product and margin, the sales piece?
Well, we do the overall because ultimately it's not just about revenue, it's about profit.
Right.
And so if you want to scale the business, you don't. If you scale a channel that you're losing money on, you scale your losses.
Right. Yep.
You know.
Yep.
And so we want to scale the channels that you're making the most money on, and then we want to orient everything towards making higher profit. So we look at the costs, but typically we look at the things that are more variable costs that are related to sales growth.
Right.
So these are your direct delivery costs to service every sale.
Right.
Your marketing costs and your sales team costs. We move those up.
Support costs.
Right, support. So everything that's related to, basically, if we add more revenue, we add more costs in that.
Right.
We want to track all that because we want to know where the costs are. We want to try to improve that efficiency over time. So, for example, we want to improve the amount of revenue that you're making for a given sales team.
Right.
Improve the amount of revenue that you're making for a given marketing spend. We want that to also, that profit rate to be increasing every month in addition to the revenue. That's where you get a super scaling situation.
Right.
Revenue's going up and your profit rate in every category you care about is going up simultaneously.
I like the analogy of the dial. Once things are locked in, you slowly turn up
Correct.
the dial. That's like we're here. Now it's time to go like that.
Exactly.
You know?
Afterburner mode.
Yeah,
That's what we call
mode.
it, you know?
No, and that's what I love. I mean, I've talked to you about a couple different businesses since we've gotten to know each other, and I really do love the space you're in because, it's not a crutch, it's an afterburner.
Yep,
again, because
exactly.
it's like there's some things that you just can't fix, right? Like with a company, or you have to wait for them to fix those things before you can turn on the afterburners. But I run into businesses a lot. I do a lot of these networking events and things where as you're talking, you're kind of like, oh my gosh, you guys seem like you are poised for an explosion.
Yep.
What's the this is going to be a really clunky analogy, but what's the ring that has a crack in it that when you turn on the afterburners, it could cause the whole thing to explode? Do you do any kind of test runs? My vocab isn't really great in this space, but tests to make sure that if you do turn on afterburners or scale, that they don't.
Well, I know what you're getting at. So basically, as a business grows, there's always something. What is constraining the business changes from period to period.
Right.
So initially, you might be feeling, I just don't have enough deals.
Right.
Then you get deals coming in, and you're like, well, I don't have enough support staff.
Right.
Or I don't have enough people to do onboarding.
Yeah.
Or I'm out of cash.
Right.
So in different periods, different things are the constraints.
Right.
The thing that causes a failure to launch, so you hit the afterburners and then you stall.
Right.
Is essentially, it's going to be a cash flow issue, but ultimately at the end of the day, because you're turning more customers than you're earning, you actually don't make money on the sales because you're selling the things that you're selling them below what they cost you to deliver. Right. Or you're not delivering properly and you're having to give discounts and credits and things. Yeah. So what ends up happening is, like I was saying earlier, if you're not making money on every sale, as you're scaling the sales, you're scaling your losses.
Right.
And there are certain losses that are hidden inside an organization, particularly services-based organizations, where the sale is delivered over a long period of time. So you earn the sale at the beginning, you deliver it over a long period of time. Those losses accrue over a longer period of time, but your sales are scaling earlier.
Right.
So your sales are going up early, losses are accruing later, and then you hit a point where the losses overtake, what you're growing. And that's where you see the cracks. So you fix that by making sure that every sale is profitable in of itself, when it comes in. A lot of companies are basically in a kind of shell game situation where they're selling one thing to pay off the losses on another thing, to pay off the losses on a third thing. that is a bad situation. It's bad to scale that way. Lots of companies achieve paper success,
right?
But I don't think they achieve what most business owners are looking for, which is a kind of low stress business that, as you move from each step to each step, it's getting stronger and stronger.
Right.
Rather than getting like more teetering as it gets larger.
Yeah.
It feels more unstable as it gets larger. What you want is, as the business gets larger, it feels more stable and it feels like you have more power and more wind behind your back.
Yeah. So. I have a very snarky joke about that, where as people are growing, and it's like, when was the last time you, as the owner, was able to take a week-long vacation and not answer your phone once? That's how you know that you're hiring the right people, that you're growing in a healthy way, that if you can step away for that little bit and things don't come crumbling down around you. But, man.
If you like that kind of life.
Yeah,
if you enjoy, just putting out fires every day. And some business owners do really like that. They kind of like that, the grit of, where are we gonna make, our next quarter.
Right. Tempered, the strongest steel is tempered by fire.
Yeah.
Yeah.
However, I want things to be easy.
Yeah.
I want to set the pins up and knock them down.
Yeah.
Kind of situation.
Yeah.
I don't want to be chasing things at the last minute.
Mm-hmm.
That's more of a psychological, aspect. And so that's what we try to do when we get into the client work is bring all the things that might happen in the future now, fix them early.
Right.
So they're not problems. They're really just trade-offs and choices that you can make rather than fires that you're putting out.
Yeah. Well, the consulting background really comes out in this conversation with you because not only do you have a great command on the specifics of what businesses need, but that step back, that emotion to kind of recognize different businesses do different things. But man, I could definitely talk to you for ages here. This is great. I do like to keep these digestible right around like 20-25 minutes. So in that sense, I want to make sure before we head out here that everyone has a good opportunity to find you. What's the best way to reach out? Is that salesinsights.io, the website, right?
Yep, correct.
We have that.
Salesinsights.io, that's our product site. I'm on LinkedIn a lot.
Yep.
So I write a lot on there and interact.
And you do a lot of podcasts of your own, a lot of kind of live events, things like that.
Correct. So I think LinkedIn is a great place to connect with me, and then also just for sales and marketing, that's really the social network where it's at for any of that kind of content.
And that's Rory, Rory.
Yep. Laitila.
Yeah, gotcha.
Yep. As far as I know, I'm the only one on there.
I think so. I haven't. It's a very unique last name.
Yeah.
But yeah. Well, that's awesome. That's where. So LinkedIn, the website are two great ways for people to find you.
Yeah.
We have a very good idea of how much you can help any growing business, but specifically certain businesses that are ready to pop, ready to scale, and want some guidance along the way. Thank you so much for joining the series as well. This kind of fit in well, and I'll be at the third Tuesday this month as I can finally get there. Again, July was a bit busy, but Rory, thank you so much for joining the series.
Appreciate it.
Rory from salesinsights.io. That does it for week 47 of It's Business Time. Thank you all for hanging out, and we will see you next time. It's been